episode 4 of Pixel Perfect Gaming. I'm Chris.
And I am Pat, and today we are joined by my friend Alex here. He is a old friend. I've known him for quite a few years. We went to college together and eventually became roommates after a year and lived in a house with some other guys and had good times together. So he's joining us to share his opinion on some of our topics today. So say hello, Alex.
Hello, everybody. Glad to be here. Long-time listener.
All right. Never missed an episode.
That's dedication.
So it is. I'm impressed. Leader of the fan club as well, I hear. Before we hop into the topics today, a little bit of an update from last week's episode. We started off talking about my cat Ekko and the issues that he was having health-wise. With the FIV scare, I'm going to call it this scare, that we were having with him, I had called around to a ton of vets and was trying to get him into an appointment to get him tested ASAP, and nowhere could see him until like the end of the following week. So I ended up driving down to Connecticut to the shelter that we got him from, and they tested him there, and then they also gave a second opinion on his stomatitis. So the good news is that he tested negative for the FIV, so yay there. Chris, if you could insert those like horns right there, that'd be great.
Am I going to get copyright on that? Is it going to be a copyright issue?
Can you copyright the horn noise?
I don't know. This could be a Fortnite dance issue for all I know.
Oh, jeez. Anyways, but the stomatitis, I don't know if it's necessarily good news, but it's not bad news either. I'm going to call it a little light in the dark, hopefully. This vet said that we wouldn't have to remove all of his teeth. It's only affecting his back teeth. So if we do go through with an extraction, he'd be able to keep his front teeth, which is good. One, because we don't want to lose all his teeth. And two, him and our other cat play with each other constantly, and the other cat's a lot bigger, so he needs some kind of defense tool here. And they also gave us pills to put him on, which won't cure the stomatitis. It would put it basically into like a remission where it wouldn't bother him anymore. His gums wouldn't be inflamed. The little bit of swelling in there would go down, and then he wouldn't have to have his teeth pulled. Now, it's not a guarantee that will work by any means, but pills were free. It's worth a shot. And if it does work, it could always come back. But if it does, we just try the pills again, and hopefully they work again. So it's very possible that these pills could just create it into a non-issue, which would be ideal.
Right.
But,
and it beats the alternative of paying for the actual extraction of the teeth, right? Because what we had talked about, that's pretty expensive. Now, when we had talked about it, was that the cost of extraction just the back teeth, or was that the cost for all the teeth?
That was whole mouth. Yeah, that was all of the teeth, and it also included like they require blood work to be done first and things like that. And like the lab work for it was $200, and then the extraction of the teeth was $1,700. So that's where I got that $1,900 price tag I gave you before.
Yeah. Now the pills, I mean, they were free this time, but if you have to do them in the future, I mean, what's the cost of the medicine for that for a month?
Like somewhere between like $60 and $90, I think they said.
Oh yeah, I would say that's a much better option.
Yeah, if I have to do that for him once a month, like 1 month a year.
I was gonna say 1 or 2 times a year.
that's so much better, and it gets to keep his teeth. Like, it's great. Why would you not at least try? So
now, has he lost his baby teeth yet?
Yeah. I believe so. From what the vet said.
So he's already grown. Okay, because I was going to say, I mean, is it going to be an issue if he loses his baby teeth and the other teeth grow in?
Well, I had mentioned that to the vet the first time around. I had said, well, like, are these his adult teeth? What if these are his baby teeth? We go in and we pull them, and then his adult teeth come in, then we got to go in and we got to pull those too.
Exactly. You end up spending like $4,000 for this, right?
Yeah. But they said that, he already has his adult teeth. His adult teeth are still kind of growing in, but he has them. So.
I see. Okay.
I don't know. Fingers crossed. High hopes.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully that resolves the situation. You don't have to go through the whole extraction procedure, so.
Yeah. Alex, you're a fellow cat man, yeah? Right?
I am, yes.
And what's your cat's name again?
His name is Ness.
Ness.
Yes.
Hey,
Yep. Like. Yep.
listen. Yeah.
Very appropriate.
Man. Now, how long have you had Ness for?
A little over 2 years,
Mhm.
and he's a domestic short hair, all black. He has a little spot of white underneath his chin, and he's my little buddy.
My kind of cat.
Yeah, I had never owned a cat before, and I was indifferent about it. And to be honest, it was one of the best decisions I ever made. He's my little guy, and I love him so much. I became a cat person essentially overnight.
Yeah, I remember at college you weren't even much of a pet person in general. So
Yeah, I never really have been. I mean, I had a couple smaller pets when I was younger, but I never really owned a dog. I mean, I had one for a little while, but I mean, he died, and I was never really big into pets. Long story short, but yeah, I mean, we got our kitty at the time, and I became a cat person overnight. He's my best little buddy.
that's great. Was he a rescue? Where'd you get him?
He's a rescue. Yeah. So, for those who don't know, I live in Denver, Colorado, and our local PetSmarts around here, they partner with Denver animal shelters, and basically they put on little events where you can come in and you can, play with the cats, interact, and potentially adopt and rescue. And I believe Ness came from one of the local animal shelters here, and they had him at a PetSmart, and we talked about it for a little while. And we just on a whim we went to PetSmart one day to kind of look at the cats, and I went in the little room and I sat down and I was playing, and he came right over to me, and it was pretty much instant. I mean, it took me 2 minutes, and I was like, this is the one. This is our guy.
This is my cat. I want this cat right now. Give me the paperwork.
Yeah,
Cat
I mean,
adopted you.
pretty much, yeah. I mean, it didn't take much effort on his part. He sucked me right in. But yes, he is a rescue. We're really big on rescuing if possible.
For sure. Definitely. That's great. Cool. I had never heard the story before.
So you're a first-time cat owner, so I'm kind of curious from your perspective. I mean, how do you deal with the cat issues that people typically complain about, like furniture with claws and things of that nature? What do you do with that?
So that's a good one. So when we first got him, I mean, I don't know. I know it varies depending on where you live, but at least here, when you adopt the cat, right off the bat, you sign a paper saying that you will not declaw them, because here it's considered inhumane to
I love that. That's
to declaw
fantastic.
your cat.
I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and we wouldn't have done it anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not about that, So, right off the bat, I mean, that's not an option. So from there, I mean, we tried the basic stuff of like, trying that. We put on like the double-sided tape on the
Mhm.
ends of the furniture. He just kind of avoided it and then went to other stuff. So obviously we couldn't put double-sided tape on everything. And then that led us to trying like the spray that you kind of spray on that they hate the scent. Didn't really work. And it's he kind of just had free reign. At the time, we had a leather couch, and he just had his way with it. So, yeah, there was honestly there wasn't much that we were able to do, at least that we could come up with, that wasn't unreasonable. Because again, I mean, we could do like the double-sided tape and stuff, but we didn't like the idea of putting that on every piece of furniture we had. So, the water bottle thing worked for a while. Essentially, we just had spray bottles all around the house, and through conditioning enough, he would know that if he touched something, we'd spray him right in the face with the water bottle, and he'd go running. And then after a while, he just learned not to do it. It worked for the most part. Sometimes it doesn't.
Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's a little punk. So right now, what's been working, and it's really, really weird, but my wife actually discovered it or came up with it, is that when he's acting up, usually, mainly, I mean, he kind of has free reign over the house, but it's really just when he starts picking his claws into the furniture. When he starts doing that, it's one specific tone of like, it's going to sound weird over the microphone, I'm sure, that woo noise at a certain tone. He absolutely hates it, and he just sprints away. He goes running. So when he starts picking at furniture and stuff, we just have to make that one specific tone of woo, and he hates it so much. I guess it's ear screeching to him, and he just runs. So that's what we've been doing lately. I mean, we
That's
haven't found
interesting.
anything 100% concrete, but that's honestly, it's probably the most effective of it.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I'm thrilled that Colorado has a no declaw policy. Pat knows I'm very adamant against declawing. That's something I'm very, I don't know, I'm very spoken out about that kind of thing. The only downside with like water bottles and things like that is cats very much are the kind of pet where it works when you're around, but the moment you're not home, they do what they want. Like
Yeah,
the moment you're not home,
100%.
the cat's like, they're not going to spray me, so I can do what I want now. So
Yeah.
you really have to find, you kind of have to find behavioral fixes that work when you're home and when you're not home, and they can't tie to you, because some cats will get resentful with stuff like water bottles and air canisters and things like that, and they'll kind of hold it against you because they're, you know, assholes like that.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've even, I mean, my wife could attest to it too. I mean, we've had times where our cat's walked right up to the chair that I'm sitting in, and he starts clawing at it, and I'll spray him right in the face with the water bottle, and he just stands there and takes it, and he just like stares right back at me, and I'm like, well, now what?
Yeah.
Just looks at you like, I don't care anymore.
Yeah, pretty much.
You're worst.
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend trying things like putting scratching posts near the furniture that you don't want them to use, and like trying to give them treats and have them scratch the post before you give them treats, so you're kind of rewarding them for that behavior. So
Mhm.
maybe they kind of tread away from the furniture. The other option is you could always get motion censored cans so that they work when you're not home. So long as you know they cross the motion sensor, it's going to spray them and they're going to freak out from it. That's how I used to keep my cats off the kitchen counter.
Mhm. That's interesting. I've
After a
never.
couple attempts of that, they learn, you know, I can't get on the kitchen counter whether he's home or not. Every single time I get blasted with air, and it scares the crap out of me.
Right. I never. Yeah. I mean, that's a really good idea. I've never actually. Again, I mean, I'm a first time cat owner, but I've never thought about that using the motion sensing sprays. That's good. I like that.
I'm glad to hear that you tried the double-sided tape and stuff, though. I mean, it doesn't work for every cat, but I mean, it's worth a shot to try the double-sided tape. So
Mhm.
How much does one of those motion sensor blasters sound like?
they're about $20 or so on Amazon, give or
What are they
take.
called?
So
Cat
uh,
sentry guns?
cat sentry gun.
I googled that and I'm getting a lot of hits.
All right, hold on. Let me take a look here. I'll tell you what it's called.
Oh, yeah, hit me with the knowledge.
So the one that I saw, the one that I used was Pet Safe SSS Cat. It's spray pet deterrent, motion activated pet proofing repellent for cats and dogs. So it's about $33.
Okay, that's not
Which
bad.
I mean, it's not a great price point. Obviously, I mean, I think we'd all probably want to spend a little bit less. But if you've got a leather couch, I think $33 is probably worth it to try and save your leather couch.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can speak firsthand. I wish it would have saved mine.
Yeah.
Now, is this something with your experience, Chris, where you had to constantly keep replacing it, or after it was out for a little while, it was kind of learned that it was there, and you could just like leave a dead can there, and that was
I've never had a can die. I've never had to replace a can and still fix the behavior. So every time I've used it on a foster cat for a countertop or, you know, behind the TV with Houdini or something like that, it was they learn very quickly after a couple sprays, okay, I can't do it, and then they just stop. And then eventually I could actually remove the can entirely and they're not even going to bother with it.
It's interesting. I might look into that, see if that'll work for Schmidt.
No, it's absolutely not going to work for Schmidt. He's too much of
Yeah,
an ass.
just let me dream, man. He's very
No,
very
he
stubborn and
runs that
determined cat.
household. He does everything that he wants. It's not
He
it's not gonna work.
does,
It's gonna
man.
spray him in the face, and he's just gonna smack it over and be like, "Do it again."
He's gonna like bring it to me and be like, "Did you really think this would work?"
That's a cute attempt, Pat. I'll wait till you sleep.
Cool. So let's keep moving right along here. Up next, we had planned, Alex, for you to give us your top 5 games. And just so everyone knows, this is something we plan to do for every guest that we have. We don't know when the next one will be or anything like that, but almost like their entry fee. They got to give us their top 5 games. So whenever you're ready, man, take it
Okay.
away.
Okay. So yeah, I had listened to the previous episodes where you both discussed your top fives, and I very, very much enjoyed it. I love hearing other people's top fives as well. I think it's just a great conversation piece. And it's funny because at the beginning, you got to give that disclaimer, like, I'm sure not everyone's going to agree with us, but, and I thought to myself, like, well, of course not everyone's going to, not everyone's going to agree with you. I mean, that's just how it goes. And now I find myself in the same spot, and I'm like, I just want to give that disclaimer that I know they already said it, but I'm sure not everyone's going to agree with my top five, particularly my top five. I'm sure I'll catch a lot of flack for it because I usually do. But
Yeah, and you say that whenever we gave that disclaimer, you were like, well, yeah, that makes sense. But you were texting me as you're listening to it, and you're like, I swear to God, if your number one game is League, I'm gonna be
yeah,
so disappointed.
well, I think, like I said, I think I said I would be so disappointed because to me it was so predictable. Like you have this buildup of I'm listening to your titles, like, oh man, that's a good choice, great game. Yeah, I like that game too, yada yada. And I sat there and I really, really thought about it, and I was like, he hasn't said it yet. Like and I'm like, oh man, if it's number one, I'm gonna be mad.
Well, and you heard how frustrated I was on the conversation too. I was like, "Don't be League! Like, you gotta
yeah.
be kidding me right
Well,
now."
yeah, and I think a big part of it for me is that, like, I mean, we all are. We're very passionate about video games. I love video games. I love video game culture. I love video games as an art form. So I think it's also me, like, battling my inner self saying, there are so many better games than League. But again, I'm thinking in terms of, like, story, art, and all of that. So I think I was just even more frustrated with myself because, of course, I'm thinking of my top five when I'm listening to your top five. I'm like, dude, you could have put so many other games in there. And then you hit me with the left hook. Like I said, League better not be your number one. And you were like, oh, well, sorry, man. And then I listened through the whole thing. I was like, man, you got me. Well, yeah, so I guess I'll jump right in. And again, to the people listening, I apologize if I give a lot of ums and ehs. I'm not very experienced with the whole recording thing, so I'm really trying to do my best here. So number five, this one will probably be pretty quick. Number five is going to be Diablo 2, particularly Diablo 2. I mean, I've always loved Diablo games. Diablo 2, I like Diablo 3 as well, but Diablo 2 I think was just the right time, right place, primo role-playing game for me. I mean, there's a cult following behind it. I don't know if I want to say to this day, but I know as of very, very recently, Diablo 2 was still getting occasional updates. To me, it's one of the best RPG games of all time.
I believe it still gets ladder updates if nothing else. But how do you now? Do you include the Lord of Destruction in that? Like, is that considered part of that top five for you?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed Lord of Destruction, but I guess as a whole, I mean, it would primarily be Diablo 2. I'll backtrack on that for a second. Just being that it really, Diablo 2 really evolved like the hack and slash type of dungeon crawler game. I mean, there was really no game like it at the time. So yeah, I mean, most of the reason that I like Diablo 2 is for just the gameplay and the mechanics itself. So really, you could say at the core, it's just Diablo 2, but I enjoyed Lord of Destruction as well.
I think it's an important game. I mean, it created its own genre basically. I mean, when you have loot-based games that have the type of loot that Diablo had, everyone references Diablo 2 honestly as like, oh, it's very Diablo 2-esque type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And it gives like the perfect what do I want to say? It gives the perfect balance of effort and reward. Just enough to like, for those people that get the dopamine feel when they or that euphoric feeling when they get that big loot drop.
Yeah.
It's just enough to, keep you going. I mean, it's just enough to keep it unpredictable. And of course, the whole random generation deal. And, you could go into it a lot. But yeah, I mean, big part being, I think it gives a very good balance of effort and reward.
I think you make a good point with the dopamine hit as far as the loot drops being really rewarding. I think that's what Blizzard really messed up with Diablo 3 on launch was the auction house, and that dopamine doesn't exist when you can just buy things off the auction house.
Yeah, I agree with that. I know, like, I got Diablo 3 literally the day it came out, and to be honest, I was indifferent about the auction house. I can't lie. I was stoked about the idea of, oh man, I'm gonna get some big drops and just take all people's money. And like I was like, I'm gonna take these kids for a ride. But of course, yeah, the auction house turned into an enormous disaster, and I of course ended up resenting it. I don't think it was a smart move at all.
Yeah, well, especially with the drop rates where they were, because I mean nobody was getting drops very often, and typically when you did get them, they were so bad that it's like I'm not going to use them. Well, and even back then they didn't have smart loot, so you as a barbarian would get, a demon hunter weapon, and you're like,
Yep.
what am I going to do with this? Re-roll
Yeah.
my whole character? What is this?
Yeah. I mean, I remember when the game first came out, and I was having the exact same thoughts. I was getting all these super dope drops, classes that weren't me, and I was very upset because I played through as a wizard for the first time, and I kept getting all this dope like demon hunter stuff, and it was upsetting.
Yeah, I mean, the only time I would have been happy with a demon hunter item is like, give me a double socket mana core I can put up on the auction house for a couple $100, and
Yeah,
then,
for
then
real.
we'll talk.
Yeah. So, I mean, most people that I know that have played Diablo 3 have played Diablo 2 as well, and people are indifferent about it. I think for me, it was just a right place, right time thing. I think Diablo 2 just hit me at exactly the right age where it was all new to me. I mean, there had been previous dungeon crawler style games and whatnot, but I mean, I think Diablo 2 even came out in like 2000, and I hadn't played it for a little while because I was born in '93, so the game comes out, I'm like 7. I don't really have no idea what's going on. So it took me a little while to come around, but even again, the game was years old, but we were still all about it. Great game. I thought it was a great game.
Good choice.
So I'll boogie right on to number 4. So my number 4 is going to be Resident Evil 4. I'm a pretty big fan of the Resident Evil games. I know you had mentioned Resident Evil 5, Pat.
Yep.
Also a great game, but Resident Evil 4 hit it right on the nail for me. So like, I think at this point in the Resi series, we were so used to seeing like the tight streets and alleyways, and right off the bat, you get this like fresh cabin in the woods type of feeling. It just gives us new scenery. We see like some castles, villages, mines, ruins, and it gives this like sense of consistent isolation that I feel like previous Resident Evil titles didn't quite have. And if I recall correctly, I might be wrong on this, and you guys can certainly correct me. I think Resident Evil 4 was the first one that introduced the whole like over the shoulder camera view. Yeah, and I for one am a huge fan of that. I think it's a lot of fun, and I really like that it gives us a whole new like subliminal angle of tension. So you're aiming your gun, you're completely planted to the ground. So now you're standing still. So in essence, the ability to defend yourself comes with the cost of being completely exposed anywhere outside of your peripheral vision. You can't see behind you, you can't see too far on your sides, and I think it's really cool. I think it adds a whole new piece of tension when you're standing still, watching the enemies come right towards you. You got to make a decision quick.
For RE4, I think they also evolved the zombie genre. I mean, you remember blowing off the heads of zombies, and all of a sudden they have creatures coming out of their body, and you're like, "What the fuck is that?"
Man, yeah.
I did, dude. You shoot it in the head.
Or the iconic blind guy, that with the razor arms or whatever, that you can't run around because he's going to come at you full speed, and you're like, this is terrifying, legitimately terrifying.
Yeah, and then you get those levels where and I think Resident Evil 4 had them. I know 5 did, but I think Resident Evil 4 had the whole like long tongue looking dudes that would like slither and crawl across the floor and across the ceiling. But regardless of that, yes, I mean, even what you were saying, you blow a dude's head off and just like 6 tentacles come out and then another mouth. You're like, oh, okay. Like, headshots didn't mean, they don't mean what they used to. And then, that adds another angle of difficulty when you start getting to, because everyone here, well, I shouldn't say everyone here, but assuming everyone here knows, Resident Evil games have a high amount of replayability. So when you get to these higher difficulties, headshots don't mean anything anymore. You have to like kneecap them and slice them with your knife just enough that you can run past them. And yeah, I mean, just like you said, it really did evolve zombies. And then throughout the game, there's also these more like faster paced action moments. Now, that being said, they usually play out through like these like live action cutscenes, which I got to admit, even though this is in my top 5, I'm not a big fan of like live action cutscenes, mostly because I just like to watch the cutscenes.
The QuickTime events, the terrible QuickTime events, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, that's what I should say. The QuickTime events. Like I put the controller down so I can like take a sip of my drink real quick,
then you die.
And then I'm like, oh shit! I'm like dropping the can on the floor, like trying to grab my controller because it's like some games. I'll just use one as an example, like Until Dawn. Like some games, like if you miss those, it can completely affect how the game turns out. And like when you're playing through these games for the first time, you don't know, like you don't know what it's going to mean. So in Resident Evil, it's usually just you die. But since you never know, you're scrambling and just staying on the edge the entire time, even during the cutscenes, which I'm not really a big fan of. But
Yeah, that. I was just gonna say, like, that reminds me of how you're like, oh, you think you're in a cutscene, and then this event happens, and you're like, oh shit, trying to scramble so you don't mess up and get affected negatively. Um, and all I can think of whenever you say that is Telltale Games, The Walking Dead.
yeah, I mean that's a good example.
I don't know if you remember this. It was our first year in our house. You came into my room, and I had been playing the new episode that came out. I think it was episode 3 or 4, and it's where you're on the train and you're heading into the city with Clem, and you're teaching her how to shoot a gun, you're cutting her hair, yada yada. And it was just like a big talking part. And so I was like trying to get changed because we were going out later, and you came into my room to talk to me. And Clem started crying on the TV in the background because I missed something. I was like, no!
And then it hits you with that's real light message up in the corner. It's like, Clem will remember that. You're like, whoa, wait. Remember what?
Yes, spot on. All right, sorry.
No, you're cool. And then, I mean, I'll try to wrap up Resident Evil 4 really quick. I think there's a super healthy mix of weapons in the game. It gives you a great amount of replayability, whether it be you want to replay the game on higher difficulties to unlock more stuff, which is pretty standard for Capcom. You finish the game, you unlock this for your next playthrough, finish it in this amount of time, you get this for the next playthrough, which I think is a lot of fun. But even if you're not into that, they have like the blue medallions throughout the game that you can get, so you find yourself replaying levels like 5 times just to find those. It introduces one of my favorite characters, the merchant, the shady dude who sells you the guns, who just doesn't seem to be affected by zombies or anything, and he hits you with the "What are you buying?"
He's only affected by money.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing hurts him. It's all about that money. And yeah, and I think it speaks for itself that I think originally when the game came out, it was just for the GameCube, and then by the end of that year, it was also out for the PlayStation 2. I mean, it was just a hit game. I think if you look it up, I mean, I'd be willing to bet that Resident Evil 4 is one of the most ported games ever. I think it's been released at least 10 different times, like on different consoles and whatnot. So that's definitely a big one for me. I love the Resident Evil series as a whole. I mean, I really, really enjoy all the games, but Resident Evil 4 just did it perfect.
And to kind of speak on that too, with the replayability for Resident Evil 4 specifically, that's when they introduced mercenary mode for the first time too. So you had all that extra stuff that you had to go through, and I think that was to get like the hand cannon and stuff like that was to go through all that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and Capcom has a good way of doing that. I mean, they you go through like the hardest difficulties as fast as possible, and they'll just hook you up with the most insane, overpowered weapons ever, just so you can go through and have fun. And I think that's really, really cool.
So,
Yeah.
I Googled it quick.
Mm-hmm.
How many different ports?
Mm-hmm.
Give me some guesses. What you guys think? So, Alex, how many times do you think?
My official, so I I know that I said I'd be willing to bet like at least 10 times, but my guess is going to be 8. My guess is going to be 8.
And Chris?
I would guess probably like 4 times.
4? 8 different ports released 9 times.
Wait, what?
It's pretty nuts.
8 different
Wait, what?
9 times.
Yeah. So like a re-release on.
Yeah, and I guess that kind of makes sense because I know, like, I mean, again, I'll try to be brief. We had the GameCube version, the PlayStation 2 version. I think there was like a watered-down Wii version that we absolutely will not talk about. Like the Xbox One version. I'm sure it's been released on like PlayStation 3, maybe not like a definitive edition, but just kind of like available in their marketplace. But yeah. I mean, I had a feeling that it would be around that amount. It's a lot of people really, really like it. It's not quite as scary as the earlier titles, and you didn't need to have played the earlier games to use this as a good introductory game.
It was more of an action shooter than a survival horror like Resident Evil was used to previously, but I could definitely see RE4 being remade similar to what they're doing in Resident Evil 2, which we're obviously going to talk about later on, but I could definitely see that one being the next one that they're going to remake, and I think that would be really, really popular for Capcom, especially if they add survival horror into it and just boost it even further.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I would be super stoked. I mean, again, no matter how many times they ported it, if they did a whole quote unquote, remake, just like they are with RE2, I think it would be a hit, especially because there's a whole generation of gamers now. I mean, we're starting to hit this split where younger gamers are really coming into the scene. I say it like we're that super old, but there's a whole generation of younger gamers coming into the scene who probably aren't even familiar with this game or some of the other titles. So I think it'd be a really wise idea for them to remake it, because again, for a lot of players, this was like an introductory game, and I think it could be that all over again.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I'd play the demo.
You wouldn't finish it though. It'd be half an hour, and you wouldn't make it. You wouldn't finish it in time.
Look, for not being a completionist, I like to look around sometimes. I like to poke some stuff. Ooh, what's this? Ooh, what might be in this room? Nothing. I'm leaving that room. Whoa, what's in this room? That's.
See, for me, if you're gonna put a half an hour time limit on me, I'm like, I need to get to the end of this. I need to see what's what. I have to go through this.
I need to go into the side rooms that no one else is going to go into, and I need to make sure that you detailed them properly and you didn't half-ass it. All right?
That's fair.
This is not like an Activision game. You know that, right?
Look, man, with the way things are going, who knows?
Well, I mean, they do hit you with the, well, actually, I don't know if they hit you with this when you finish. So I finished the demo, and I don't know if they hit you with that, but excuse me. I don't know if they hit you with this if you don't finish it, but it's like, now that you're done, do you want to buy the game?
Yeah, they hit me with that.
Oh, even if you don't?
If you want to pre-order it right now?
And they were like, wow, hey, cool, 30 minutes is up. Wasn't that fun? Go buy it. Here's the link.
Yeah. I mean,
we'll get that pre-order bonus? Huh? You don't want to read the reviews, right?
Yeah, and we'll get into that more, because obviously we can turn this into a whole tangent about the demo, but I know we'll get there. So I'll just push through, and I'll go to my number 3. This is definitely one that I'm expecting to catch flack about. Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. So I'm just going to go right out the gate and say I do realize that Morrowind is widely regarded as better than Oblivion, and that's valid. There's a lot of benefit, and I guess to say more difficulty with Morrowind. I mean, I like the fact that Morrowind does the whole, like, we're not going to put map markers specifically out for you. You got to read the books. You got to invest yourself in the lore. But I think for me, Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion was just another right place at the right time deal. I mean, it hit me right at like primo age. It just came out. It came out in like 2006. I had just turned like 13, really getting into the Xbox scene, and I was absolutely infatuated by this game. I mean, the depth is insane. It was my first real experience with any Elder Scrolls game. I spent an endless amount of time playing it. I had a group of friends who played it as well. One of them owned the strategy guide. We would go to school and just kind of read the strategy guide, like just for fun. Like we'd take turns borrowing it for class, and we would just take it to class and read it during class. And it was insane. I mean, we had never played a game like it. But again, this is when we were just getting into the Xbox 360 scene. So Morrowind had already been out, but we weren't really familiarized with it.
I mean, I can agree.
I had played Morrowind.
Mm-hmm.
Never played Oblivion, but then played Skyrim.
Huh. Yeah,
I mean, I honestly, not that I don't dislike Skyrim, because they build upon what they've done in previous games, and all in all, it's a good game. But it really, for me, it just didn't have that same magic that Oblivion had. I didn't invest myself as hard into it. I mean, it's your typical run-of-the-mill, like, Bethesda game, so obviously it's riddled with bugs and glitches and errors and problems, and that's fine. I mean, we come to expect that. The community will fix it later.
Well, we don't expect it anymore. I think we're over that point after Fallout 76.
This is true. I haven't even played 76.
Yeah, we're beyond that at that point. But yeah, I mean, I prefer Oblivion. I played Oblivion, went back to Morrowind, hated it, went back to Oblivion, and I like Skyrim, but very similar to you, Alex. I haven't put 1,000 hours into Skyrim like I have Oblivion, and even when I think about the games, I'm like Oblivion. I would go back and put hundreds of hours into it, and I don't really know what it is exactly, but there's just something more appealing about that game for me.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if part of me was like, the graphics are a little more cartoony compared to games like Skyrim and whatnot. I'm not exactly sure what it is, honestly. Like I said, I think it really is just one of those things that it hit me at the right age. It was the right time. I had never played a game like it before. Now, obviously, PC gamers, been there, done that. But when I was that age, it was a big deal to me, and it was super easy to play, easy to learn. I had never really played an open world game like it at the time.
Open world games are my downfall a lot of times. I get way too off track.
Yeah, I do that a lot too. I mean, I usually have to I have to constantly remind myself that I'm going to finish the storyline before I do any additional stuff, and I'm usually pretty good about that. But you know how it goes.
For me, it's not even like getting distracted by side quests or something. It's more like, hey, I'm on the main quest. I'm like, all right, you need to go to this town now. I'm like, all right, I'm on my way there, and I see something off in the distance, and I'm like, I want to fight that. And I go and I fight that, and then I see something else I want to fight, and it's just this big old loop, and I'm just never on any quests at that point.
Yeah.
I'm a
Open
hermit
world
in the
games are the
woods.
bane of my existence too, especially because they're becoming so vast. I mean, I'm thinking about Red Dead Redemption 2 and how I'm never going to finish it. And I know I'm never going to finish it because every time I start to play it, I'm like, well, I need to hunt all these wolves and I need to go hunt this. And that guy looks like he wants to get killed, so I need to go fuck his day up. And I just never end up doing anything.
Yeah. I and Pat can attest to this. I'm a completionist. I'm big into getting as much out of a game as possible. I go for all the achievements. I go for 100%. That's pretty par for the course for me. But when I finished when I finished Red Dead Redemption 2, I sat back and took a good look at the map, and I took a look at the list of what you need to do in order to hit 100%. And I literally I sat there for a good 15 minutes contemplating it, and I was like, nope. And I turned it off and haven't turned it back on since. I'm like, maybe someday. That honestly is one of the very few times that I've been like, I'm not doing this. I mean, I've even 100%ed Grand Theft Auto 5, it's San Andreas. I do all of them. But I really I sat back and I looked at it and I was like, I can't do this.
Yeah. I mean, I put the money up for it. I paid for it, the $60, and I really enjoyed it, and I got my money's worth of it. But it's just never gonna happen, unfortunately, because there's just too many games that don't take the amount of time that game takes to get the same level of enjoyment for me. And I think that's an equation that's really difficult for me to figure out. But it's like if I need to invest this much time to get this much enjoyment, it's not worth it if I can play a game that's enjoyable up front or takes a little bit less investment to get that same kind of joy.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, that's essentially the same reason as to what puts me in that boat. Usually, I have fun playing through the game, have fun playing through the stories, and I'm always just I need to figure out what all else there is. I like to get everything. I don't like to leave anything behind. But again, I loved the story, but honestly, maybe it's just me getting older. But I was it felt almost too long. I was by the time I was in the last two chapters of the game, I was like, man, I really want to get this done. And it felt like a chore at that point. But I honestly, I think that's me because the story was really good. It was probably just, I'm just not the same gamer.
Well, and I don't think it's necessarily just you because Pat and I have actually talked about this as a potential topic on another episode, and we're not going to really dive into it. But as you get older and responsibilities, mile up and everything, and you kind of I go into phases of, I want to play games, I don't want to play games, and it becomes more difficult to sit through these lengthy games, 80, 90, 100-hour games, and you want to finish it, but you're almost like, I've got other shit I need to do. I can't just sit here and do this all day.
I know the big downfall for me on, again, I know we're kind of getting on a tangent, but I know the big thing for me on Red Dead Redemption 2 was that I would finish one or two missions and I would look at the map and be like, oh my God, dude, I got to ride my horse all the way over there just to start this next mission. And I would just be like, nope. And I would turn it off. I know they have the whole enter cinematic view, but I'm still sitting there tapping A and looking at my phone just so I can get across the map. And to me, it was just it was such a chore.
Yeah, that lack of fast travel definitely hurts a little bit. So okay, what's your number two?
Number two is going to be The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask. So, I'll be I could be pretty brief with this one. Most people who are probably listening to this are familiar with the game. Successor to Ocarina of Time. The biggest thing for me is I love the symbolism, and I really, really love the dark themes of the game. I like that, for a Nintendo game, it boldly removes your feeling of safety and leisure. You can't feel relaxed at any point in the game. Before you were in Hyrule, you could hang out on the fields all day if you wanted to, but now you're in Termina and there's a real problem. So basically I love the concept of time absolutely never stops moving. And the need to keep moving forward never stops either. No matter how much you trek forward, no matter how many problems you solve, no matter how many puzzles you do, you will not fit everything into that 3-day period that you get. And, before long, you got to play that Song of Time, to throw you back in, come and save your ass, put you back to square one. And the entire time you're thinking, like, did I get enough done to move forward? Did I do what I needed to do? You're just consistently pressured. And I think that's a really, really cool step that Nintendo took, because it's not your standard run-of-the-mill Nintendo game. I love that you're going to run out of time no matter what. Not once, not twice. You are going to run out of time over and over and over and over again.
I'm actually surprised that wasn't your number one. With as big of a Zelda head as you are, you have, was a Skull Kid tattooed on your body.
I do. Yeah.
It was like your first tattoo, I think. Like I figured that was probably going to be your number one.
It was a big argument in my head. Yeah, I mean, I debated having this as my number one. I think you might be surprised with my number one. I mean, there's a good chance you or most people here haven't played it or haven't heard of it. But I did a lot of back and forth thing in my head. But I absolutely love this game. I think what Nintendo did with it was absolutely brilliant. I love that they took a turn and added a lot of really dark tones to your standard Legend of Zelda game. It doesn't quite feel like a Zelda game, but at the same time it does.
I never finished it. Maybe I'll have to go back and give her a true playthrough.
Maybe. Yeah, I was gonna say this is weird for me because I've played the original Zelda on Nintendo and then Skyward Sword for about an hour, and then that's it. That's all I've ever played. I don't like Zelda games. I've never liked any Zelda game at all.
Yeah, no, and that's I mean, that's completely fine. Like for me, I remember when I really got into Zelda, again, I was young. I had just gotten a Nintendo 64. I used to go down to the video store like every week and get new games. And I went down to the video store and I picked up Ocarina of Time. That's when I really got into Zelda. Now, I since then I have played through just about every Zelda title, including the NES, Super NES, even the Game Boy games. I played through most of them, but nothing was as special to me as Majora's Mask. Like when I picked up Ocarina of Time at the video store for the first time, I had no idea what I was doing. I was so young, and I popped it in my Nintendo 64, and I just ran around and killed stuff, and I thought it was absolutely unreal. Like I thought it was the coolest shit in the world. Like I'd rent it back to back to back for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, having absolutely no sense of direction as to what I was doing. And then when Majora's Mask hit, and I was like, ooh, new Legend of Zelda game, I was a little bit older, so it was the first one that I really had sunken into the story with, and it's still my favorite one to this day. But I'm a bigger fan of dark undertones and symbolism, and I love how dark the game is.
I think the separation for me was I had PlayStation when I was a kid, and my friend Mike had an N64, and I knew that the Zelda games took an immense amount of time that I just did not have when I saw him or when I had access to his N64. So it was almost not worth starting it up because I knew I couldn't continue it until weeks later or whatever the case may be, and so I just never bothered. And then time's just gone on, and I haven't invested into it. And I remember playing Skyward Sword and really enjoying the little amount of time I spent on it, but just being like, I think I've missed so much of it at this point that's very hard for me to get into.
Yeah, and that's fair. I mean, I know a lot of people who really aren't into the Legend of Zelda games. I'm a fanboy without being like a super fanboy. I mean, I don't consider myself a super fanboy compared to some other people, but it's definitely one of my favorite games of all time. I think it's awesome.
Even when I got the Switch, Nathaniel ended up getting the Zelda Breath of the Wild and finished it, and I had Xenoblade, and we swapped games. And then when he came to pick it up, he's like, "What did you think?" And I was like, "I played it for about 25 minutes, died, put it down, and I've never touched it since." And I had it for about 6 months.
That's fair. I also think Breath of the Wild is a sick game as well. But again, I mean, you got to be into it. I mean, you just have to be into it. It's definitely not for everybody. So, should I move on to number one?
Let's do it.
Okay, so my number one game, and this might come off as silly to some, but I think it really captures the essence of a lot of parts of video gaming. It's a game called To the Moon.
I knew it.
Oh, I fucking love that game.
As soon as Zelda wasn't number one, I had a hunch, man.
Oh my gosh, I love that game. That's an amazing game.
Yeah, and I think it's an amazing game too. And I really, So first and foremost, for those who are listening who aren't familiar with the game, I'll try to be brief without giving spoilers. It's like a 16-bit game. You can get it on Steam. I think it was made in like 2011 with like RPG Maker, if I recall. It's an indie title, and
It was
basically
made by a small team. It's like 1 or 2 people or something like that.
yeah, yeah. And you play the role of these two doctors. They work for a company called the Sigmund Corporation. And the purpose of the corporation is to essentially create and inject artificial memories into the minds of dying patients in order to fulfill their last wishes. In this case, the patient is an elderly man named Johnny. The doctors insert themselves into an interactive version of his memories, and they use these mementos to relive important moments in his life. Uh, I'll try to keep it there because I really love when people play this game, and I don't want to give any spoilers for it, but it's a super basic game. I mean, you could probably finish it, and I'm glad I'm glad you're familiar with it, Chris. But like, you could probably finish it in what?
3 hours,
3
2, 3
hours?
hours, yeah,
Yeah,
give or take.
yeah. It's a very simple game, very simple and very basic. But I like that about it because I think it really the first and foremost thing is that it really captures that video games are an art form, and you don't need insane graphics to create a good video game. Like, you really just need a good story, and you could really bring it all together. Because again, I mean, it's a 16-bit game. It's very, very basic, but it does a great job of telling a story that some people will like it more than others. I'm sure there's people that don't like the game, but the story really moved me the first time that I played it. It made me feel really emotional, and I think that's awesome, for such a simple game. And it has a awesome soundtrack. In what I consider, I think the soundtrack is so good that I literally have it downloaded and saved to my phone.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, it's an amazing game. I remember when it first came out, it wasn't really available except through their website, and you had to buy it through their website in some janky way. And they email you the key for it to unlock it and all this stuff. And I was like, this does not seem right. But it is now on Steam, and I mean, I have it on Steam too. I definitely recommend it. It's, like you said, Alex, it's one of those games where it doesn't have deep mechanics, it doesn't have incredible visuals, but it has an incredible story, and it is exactly what you make of it. Like, you're kind of left to your own devices to make it the game that you want it to be.
Yeah, like I can't stress it enough, like how simple of a game it is. Like, there's no battle mechanics. There's no like there's puzzles, but they are extremely simple. I cannot stress how simple they are, and that's okay. Like, it's a great story. It's a really, really good story. And when I finished the game, I was left with like, damn, man, that was deep, and I wanted more. I wanted a lot more, and it was, I don't know if I would call it perfect, but it hit me hard, and that's why I put it at my number one. I thought it left me wanting more, and it really pulled out a lot of emotion, which is pretty uncommon for me in video games. And it's a good example of video games as an art, in my opinion, because it's so simple, but it delivers so much.
Good list.
Thank you. And my honorable mention is going to be RuneScape, of course.
I do see you play that a lot.
Yeah, I play that a lot.
I'm kind of surprised that wasn't in the top 5, but yeah, I have seen on the Discord like Rune Light, and I was like, he's definitely in RuneScape.
Yeah, I play it a lot. I don't think massively multiplayer games have any business being on any top lists. I honestly think that they're a category of their own.
Huh?
No, not at all. I've put so much time into RuneScape, it's not even funny. But I don't think it really has any business being on a top video games list, because it could be, MMOs and whatnot could be something completely all their own. I really just feel like that they're their own category. Especially when there's no end, like there's no ending to them. They keep going forever, and that's great. But I just, it's hard to compare that to other pieces of video games that at least have endings, soundtracks, and I don't know. They're just not the same for me.
Ends for me when I cancel my subscription. That's when it's over.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Good list.
Thank you.
So, next up, moving along. We kind of touched on it during your list there, but Resident Evil 2.
Actually, we should probably move to Onimusha first because it's going to be basic.
All right, take that away. That's you.
All right. So, have either of you ever played the Onimusha series? So Alex, you had said something about it in chat, so it makes me think that you have played it or you're familiar with it.
I have, yeah, and I'm familiar with it. I mean, I haven't played the remaster. I mean, I haven't played it since PlayStation 2, but yes, I have played it and I have beat it.
Now, have you played all of them or just the first couple?
Just the first couple. I have not.
Gotcha. So Onimusha it's a samurai. It's basically Resident Evil, but with like a samurai. It kind of reminds me of Neo these days because it's a little challenging. I kind of forgot how mechanically challenging it can be until I, got back into the remaster version that just recently came out. So it was a little difficult. There was definitely a learning curve there, and I think they're trying to bring the series back. It was not that popular back in the day. I think it has a cult following more than anything else, and I think the remaster is really a test to kind of gauge interest and see, okay, can we bring this back? Can this be a thing? Do other people really want the Onimusha games? So I've played the remastered. The controls are clunky. The visuals are still not great, even as a remaster, and the voice acting is atrociously bad. Which it's probably the same voice acting from when it came out, and it was probably that bad back then. But I didn't realize it until I had to listen to it, and I was like, "This is bad."
Is it better or worse than Final Fantasy X voice acting?
Oh, it is significantly worse than Final Fantasy X.
That's saying something.
That kind of bums me out because I actually have read, and like I said, I haven't played it yet, so I haven't verified it. But I actually read that the music and the voice acting are completely re-recorded for this game.
That surprises me. The music, I don't really recall what it was like, but yeah, the voice acting is pretty bad. If they re-recorded it, that's I don't even know what to say to that. That's terrible.
Yeah, I think that the music was re-recorded because years ago, and when I say years ago, I think maybe around 2014, the composer who did the music for the original came out and said that they actually didn't write all the music. They hired a ghostwriter. And I don't know if there's something with licensing issues or giving credit where credit's due or something like that. But that's what led me to reading that they re-recorded the music as well. And I'm bummed about the voice acting because I know that the original is notorious for having crappy voice acting. So I really thought they would have spruced that up.
I'm gonna have to look and find a video between what it was back then and kind of compare it to what it is now and see if it really was redone. But yeah, it's not good. It's like cringe-worthy stuff at times, which is kind of a downside. The other, the other kind of downside for this type of game is it's not a long game. I mean, you're paying $20 for a game. It's going to take you maybe 5 hours, maybe 6 if you're not really knowing what you're doing. But I mean, most people can kind of burn through it in 3 hours, 4 hours, something like that.
Yeah, I know that was the main complaint about the original game as well. Was just that how quickly it could be beaten. And yeah, I mean that doesn't surprise me that that's still what people are have something to say about. But I mean, I am glad that it's only is it $20? It's $20.
It's 20.
Right?
Yeah, the 20 might be a little steep. I'd probably prefer it to be closer to 15. I would say if you're not a fan of the Onimusha series and you're thinking about the game, then it's a game I would probably wait to go on sale before I would dump the money into it. If you could get it for $8 to $10 or something like that, I think that would be worthy of spending the time doing it compared to $20 and then you kind of get disappointed 5 hours in. You're like, oh, it's done. Because I think there's so many other games on Steam that are $20 that you can get so much more value for.
Yeah. I mean, and that it would be interesting to see if, I mean, as you said, they're probably just gauging the population to see if there's any interest in this. I mean, I know when the original one came out, I think it was back in 2000 or 2001. I think it was 2001. But basically, even before that, the idea was basically Resident Evil was so successful that we want to come up with a quote-unquote ninja version of Resident Evil.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I know that the original idea for the game was we're going to have a large mansion similar to Resident Evil, but the place is filled with booby traps, tripwire, collapsing ceilings, doors to nowhere, hidden doors, all that kind of stuff. Basically just riding off of Resident Evil's success. And the game did well. It did pretty well. It came out I do know this. I do know that it was like the first PlayStation 2 game to sell 1 million copies because I know it was a big deal at the time. So at the time that it came out, it was the best-selling PS2 game ever at the time of its release at that point. And it gained a lot of traction, and I think it ended up selling at least 2 million copies.
Yeah, I remember it doing pretty well, and then just kind of faded into oblivion, basically, and they never really brought it back. I think they could have continued it, but I guess it just didn't really have the following they were looking for, or maybe make the numbers they were really looking for. But to compare it to Resident Evil, it is fair, I think, as a samurai Resident Evil. I mean, they even have herbs and stuff that you pick up in the game, and medicine that you pick up in the game. It's the camera angles are basically exactly like playing Resident Evil 1 or Resident Evil 2.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to mention was like I know that again, it's been a long time since I played this game, but I know that it pulls a lot from the Resident Evil titles. But again, like we said, it's riding off of Resident Evil's success. So like I know it pulled off like the puzzle solving elements, the fixed camera angle deals, and like you see, the herbs, and it's just I mean it's they were just riding off of Resident.
Yeah, I think for me, as playing it when I was a kid, the nostalgia factor is really what got me hyped for it more than anything else, because it's one of those games that's like I don't really know that I want to see it remade. I don't really know that it would do well as a remade game. It's one of those games that hasn't really aged that well, and I'm afraid that to remake a game like that, they would look at Neo and they would try to make it like Neo or something like that, because ninja games and difficulty and that kind of thing, and I'd be afraid that they would just rip off Neo, and I'd be like, why? What are you doing? Like we don't need this. We've already got it. Like.
Yeah, and then it's like it's it's interesting. I mean, I'm glad you've played it because, like I said, I haven't. But like my understanding of it is basically, I read a little bit on it, just what people have been saying, and my understanding is that the remastered version is pretty much all the same as the original, except it technically runs at 1080p on consoles, even though it still looks like shit. And I'm assuming it runs much higher on a PC. But aside from the 1080p and what PC probably is like 1440. Aside from that, and supposedly the recordings, everything else is pretty much the same. Controls still suck. they're still pretty trashy, and all the other elements are still there. It sounds like it hasn't aged too well. But again, I haven't played it.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing with controls is you used to use the D-pad to navigate the game, and now you can use the joystick, which initially I was like, that sounds awesome. That's amazing. It's terrible. I actually hate the joystick because it makes it more complicated for me to actually, make good maneuvers in battle with enemies. So I'm back to the D-pad. So I'm like, what's the point of even adding this in if it's so bad that I can't even do what I need to do?
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, they probably just did some simple button mapping on the back end. They're like, there we go, baby, remastered.
Boom, joystick. Here we go. This is going to be good. And then they tested it and they went, it's terrible, but people will love it. We can still put that in the description.
Yeah, and they'll just be like, collectors will eat this up.
And they got me. 100%.
Oh yeah. No, I mean it's funny. We're talking about it right now and how sucky it is. I'm still gonna pick it up. I'm a collector, so I'll be picking it up just to, at least I'll play through it. I'll try to play through it. But if anything, I mean it's a collector's piece. It'll sit on my shelf, and at least it's only $20.
I mean, it is only 20, and
people
it'll go on sale probably at some point, guaranteed, and you can pick it up for cheaper. But it does have some in-game content too, where there's a demon realm and a tower of demons and things like that. So there are some deeper unlockables apart from the story that you can spend a little bit of time going after that offer a little bit more of a challenge, which I think is good. But I'm probably not going to do that stuff, honestly. When I downloaded it, I put like an hour into it, and then I was like, oh, I just also bought My Time in Portia, which came out the same day, and I was like, I don't know what this is, but I played that, and now I've put like 10 hours into that game, and I don't care about Onimusha right now. I'm so busy playing that.
I heard about that game. I heard it was pretty good. I don't know much about it, but I've been seeing it everywhere.
I love Stardew Valley. I like Minecraft,
Same.
And so it kind of scratches both of those for me. And it's very much Stardew Valley, but also Minecraft. And since we're mining and fighting enemies and dungeon crawling and stuff like that, and it's just it's good. It's real good. I was very happy with it.
I'm definitely gonna have to check it out then, because I do love both Stardew Valley and Minecraft.
Just the reviews on Steam. I mean, browse through those, and by time you get halfway through the second page, you'll be like, all right, take my money.
Yeah, done.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, so now we can move on to the Resident Evil 2 topic.
Resident Evil 2 demo. I liked it. I didn't reach the end point of the demo story-wise, so to say, but I reached it time-wise. That 30 minutes, it was, hey, you're done. Get out of our game. But I enjoyed it.
So I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable using spoilers in this because honestly, it's half an hour, and if you haven't played the demo, I mean, it's not that big a deal. So how far did you get? Is what I'm curious about. Where exactly were you at when the half an hour point hit?
All right, so I was finding the 3 coins that you need, or like the 3 emblems, whatever they are, that you plug into the spots, and I had gotten the one from the like lion statue, and then I had worked my way into the locker room, and you're like missing 2 keys on the keypad,
Right.
which pissed me off.
So were you in the locker room when time expired
I
for
had
you?
just left the locker room and was like working my way down the hall.
So you hadn't made it to the library or anything like that yet?
There's a library?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, no, had not made it that far.
Okay.
But like I was enjoying it. I thought it was fun. Like I don't really have any complaints. Like I guess if I had come up with a complaint at times, the walking felt a little clunky, especially if I was trying to walk quicker. It felt sluggish. But I don't know if anyone will share that opinion. I mean, I was enjoying it. It was good. The graphics were good. I enjoyed getting to shoot a couple zombies. That was fun. I mean, the horror aspect of it. I mean, it's only 30 minutes, so you don't really get the chance to get like really involved. But I mean, there was a moment I shot a zombie. I was like, yeah, he's dead. Moving on, and then it like he's dead. Moving on, and then it grabbed my ankle, and I had to like get free from it. And it was a moment where I was like, oh crap, what's happening? And so I liked it. I think it was hitting its points that it was wanting to hit and showing you what the game's going to be like, what to expect, and everything. It gave me an itch that I don't have any games that would fill. So I don't know. Maybe I'll look into picking it up.
I thought it hit the points of nostalgia and creating a new, very atmospheric like world for me. It was very nostalgic, but at the same time, I was a little stressed out and anxious the whole time because I didn't really know what was happening. Despite remembering the original game, I was like, I still don't know what's going on. I still don't know what's going to happen. So I felt a lot of anxiety for it. The PC specs for it, like the amount of options, I don't know if either of you played on the PC, but the amount of options in the PC menu for visuals, for like graphics, kind of blew me away. I was like, holy crap, there's a ton of stuff in here that I can turn on and off, and I didn't really know what to do with it.
It's overwhelming. Yeah, I didn't go into the menu. I just left it at default. It was just a demo. If I were to purchase it, then I would mess with the settings a little more and all that in there. But I enjoyed it. One of my favorite parts was actually, I'm going to call him Accordion Face. One guy's dead body that's like leaning up underneath the window, and you walk over and like inspect it, and as soon as you move his head, it's almost like stretches out the skin and flesh. And I was like, oh man, like it really gave me that horror feel from a game that I haven't felt in quite a while, and now I'm itching for a little bit.
I think the only thing that really bothered me, there were really 2 aspects of it that really bothered me. Was one, the pistol sound. The audio for the pistol was incredibly underwhelming. I really felt like it could have been better and heavier and really more impactful. So when I shot the pistol, I was like, it doesn't feel like it does anything, and that doesn't seem realistic to me, and it kind of, I don't know, bothered me a little bit. But then shooting a zombie in the head like 10 times and then they get up like 3 more times, I was getting pissed. Like there were a couple times I'm like, you have got to be shitting me. How are you getting up again?
Yeah, I had a couple of those. The pistol sounded like they couldn't make their mind up if they wanted it to really have the punch sound to it, or if they wanted it to sound suppressed.
Yeah, I think they gave, I mean, there's probably some heavier pistols in the game or unlockable like hand cannons that they probably gave the punchier audio to, but I don't want it to sound pitiful. And to me, it sounds pitiful, and to know that much of the game is going to be using that pistol, it's just, it bothers me.
Hurts you a little bit. That's okay. What about you, Alex? How'd you like it?
So,
I know you were trying to speed run it.
Yeah, so this might I know that this came up in the chat before. So, I had read in advance. I heard a whole bunch about it. So, I'm a huge Resident Evil fan. I played through Resident Evil 2 before. So, I was super super stoked when I heard about this one-shot demo coming out. And I'll just start by saying I don't know if this is 100% true. I could not find any verification on this, but I had read somewhere, I think it might have been Reddit, that somebody said half of the reason that they have this, obviously they have this 30-minute demo in order to build up hype, but aside from the whole building up hype part, they had mentioned that the original demo for Resident Evil 2, which was included with like PC Gamer magazine way back in the day, also had a 30-minute timer on it. Now, I have no way of verifying that. I tried to do a little bit of homework after I read that. I couldn't find any validation to it. I find it that it would be really difficult for them to actually enforce this like 30-minute lockout timer on a disc. So I don't think that's necessarily true, but someone had said they were sort of paying homage back to it. But aside from that, I was super, super stoked for it. I was reading everywhere that tons of people were playing it, and I too wanted to play it. I did a little bit of reading, and one thing to note that Resident Evil 2, this remake that they're doing, is it's using they're changing it to the whole over the shoulder view, like kind of how we mentioned in Resident Evil 4, and it's using the same engine. I believe it's called the RE engine that Resident Evil 7 uses. I don't know if you guys have played Resident Evil 7. I have. I'm a really, really big fan. So I'm very optimistic about the game, because if they're introducing these new elements and like remaking it with a whole new engine, I'm hoping that it's going to be a real, true remake, and I'm super stoked for it. But aside from that, getting more into my play, I had read that only about 26% of people who are having their data tracked, it gives you a little option asking if you want to have your data tracked by RENet. I selected yes, just because I wanted to give my info back to be part of the statistic. But I had read that only 26% of people actually finished the demo, so got to the end of it. So like ahead of time, I was like, oh man, like I want to experience the whole thing. I've played this game before, so I should know what I need to do. I finished it in 3 minutes and 32 seconds. I was like, all right, well, I guess I was a little too hyped up. I finished it insanely fast because I kind of knew what to do. I knew what I needed to do and pretty much where I needed to go. I mean, it was pretty straightforward for me. But I went back, played it again, and I really, really liked it. I'm super excited. But again, I'm a big Resident Evil fan, so I'm very, very excited for it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I do agree with the point that the pistol sounded extremely underwhelming. I'm presuming and I'm hoping that's because we're going to get like another handgun that really has like a kick, because I would
Or upgradability within the game. Like, we don't know, maybe they're going to have upgradability, and maybe that's going to enhance this audio quality of the pistol. Because if I had to go through the whole game really utilizing that pistol the way it was, I would just be like, oh yeah, of course the zombie got up after 15 shots. Why wouldn't it? It's just, I'm shooting pellets at it.
Yeah, and that would make sense. And if it's a true remake, I mean, we can probably expect to see something like that. And that would make a lot of sense. And I really hope that that's the case, because I wholeheartedly agree that it sounded super underwhelming. And it's probably either reserved for an upgrade to the gun, like you had mentioned, or they were like, if we give this gun like a super or a more powerful kick, we got to give these other guns that are going to be stronger, like super mega powerful kicks.
Right. They need that. It needs to have the right feedback for it, both audio and haptic and the controller. So.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, if I don't have too many complaints about it. I do agree with what you said, though. I hadn't really thought about it until you mentioned it, actually.
That was really the biggest complaint I had. And of course, zombies getting up, that I felt like, really, you should probably be dead after that. But I thought I thought the engine looked great. And I mean, Pat, you'll like to know, it's the same engine that they're using to make Devil May Cry 5. So,
Ooh.
I mean, you'll get a little taste of that engine if you get this game. So, but the new gore system and being able to delimb zombies and stuff like that was really cool. And the way they interact with stuff is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So kind of touching on like the pistol not feeling powerful because of like the sound and shooting him so many times. When I got the shotgun, I blasted a zombie at like point blank right in the dome piece, and she kept coming at me. I don't know.
So I did.
What's going on here.
I did kind of think that there were some planted zombies that were almost like, air quote, super zombies in a sense. So I don't know if, Pat, you made it to the stage, but Alex, you may remember going up a flight of stairs and there's a zombie like up against a wall, leaning down, faking to be dead, and you could shoot it and it wakes up. And I felt like that was kind of a super zombie because it took a lot more bullets than I felt like it really needed to. So I do kind of feel like there were some zombies planted within the demo that had a little bit more of a health pool than what the normal zombie necessarily did.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't want to say that this is fact because again, I can't verify this, but it wouldn't surprise me if there was some sort of rubber banding effect into play. Just saying that in the sense of like you're not moving fast enough, or you're moving too fast through this part, or you're moving too slow. There could be a rubber banding effect that's put into play. It's like, oh, this kid's moving too fast. We're gonna make the zombies more powerful. Now, like when I did like my 3.5 minute run through, obviously I was moving very, very quickly. I would like shoot them to stun them and just run past. But like,
Yeah, you're not shooting to kill anything at that point. You're just trying to maneuver around them.
yeah, I was so concerned with actually finishing because I had no idea when it actually ended. So I was like, I want to see how much I can get out of this. But, if I would have ran through while killing, I'm curious if I would have got to a certain point where they were just extremely difficult to kill. Again, there's no validation to that, but I could also see that being a factor too, because like,
Or,
we don't
or
want
the
it to
other
be.
scenario, I suppose, because I don't remember there being an option for a difficulty setting. Like, what if they don't? What if they blanket the difficulty and they adjust the difficulty for the zombies based on how you play? Like, they
Yeah,
never blanket an easy, normal, hard. They just kind of, you play the difficulty you play, and the zombies adjust based on how well you play. And if you're getting beaten up a lot, then we kind of, we reel it back in a little bit. But if you're really crushing it, we're really sending it at you. Everybody's coming at you all the time, kind of deal.
yeah, that's entirely possible too. And again, all of us, we don't know. It's a very basic demo, and you finish it, and all it really says is standard, like standard play. And I don't know what that means. I don't know if it means standard is in like a standard story playthrough, standard difficulty. We
Yeah.
don't know what it means. So I can
So
see that.
to that point, it makes me wonder because you've probably seen the videos of like Mr. X Tyrant and stuff like that, right? And he's
Mhm.
intimidating, and I'm terrified to run into him. And I'm glad he wasn't
Yeah,
in the demo. So, but I'm thinking, okay, if we're adjusting the difficulty based on that, I wonder if his appearance is more often or more seldom based on how you're playing the game. Like, I wonder if that's going to influence it. Because there are some videos where he's in certain areas, and I'm like, oh, I haven't seen him in this area chasing this person down yet.
yeah.
So I kind of wonder if it is variable like that.
Yeah, and it's entirely possible. I mean, I know, that system in games goes as far back as I think one of the first games to actually do that, like live rubber banding effect, is like Spyro. People used to speed run really, really fast through that game, so they would automatically throw more in there in order. It actually might even go as far back as like Mario Kart, like you're too far ahead, or you're doing too well, so we're just gonna absolutely smash you with everything that we have. Um, that wouldn't surprise me. I mean, it's definitely a possibility, but we don't know. We don't really know what they have in store. All in all, I loved it. I thought it was a lot of fun, and I'm really, really excited for it. I know I'll be getting it probably pretty early into its release.
Yeah, I'm probably going to get a day one. I mean, it's very nostalgic for me. And you've probably heard the episode where, I talked about how it was one of the first games I remember playing was Resident Evil 2 as a kid. So
Mm-hmm.
I, I'm not going to have any doubts about putting the money down for it. I don't think it's going to disappoint me at all. It might frustrate me and I might piss myself a couple times, but I'd see that as a win.
Yeah, and I mean it wouldn't be the same if you didn't. I think you'd be a little bit happier with the whole fear factor than finishing and being like, man, I wasn't scared enough.
I mean, there was a point in the demo where you're entering a room and a liquor goes across the window,
Yeah.
and I'm already upset, and I'm like, no, 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 no,
Yeah, no,
no, I
you're
don't
like
want
freeze
this. And you
frame.
get to the end of the hall, and there's a book, and it's like, yeah, they're blind, so if you don't make a lot of noise, I was like, no, 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 you're telling me that because I have to deal with this shit. I'm like, I don't want
Yeah.
this. I don't want this.
Yeah, I mean, I know, and like again, I mean, I had played the original, and I kind of forgot. I'm running down the hallway, and you got that body hanging from the ceiling, and like you go too close to it, it kind of like just falls down on you a little bit more. I know,
Yeah,
like
you
the
bump
first time I
into
did it,
it.
I was like, whoa.
I ran right
Yeah,
into it, man. I didn't
yeah,
even try to avoid it. Just
Or you
face
that
open that locker and the zombie falls like right on top of you, and like, son of a bitch! Like, what is that? And
yeah.
I remember in the original RE2, you've got dogs jumping through windows and stuff as you're running by. I was really grateful I didn't see
I
any of that because
I
I
was
did not want to.
anticipating that the whole time. I was like, that's why I was like, when I started, I was like, okay, we're gonna run. We're gonna see how far we can get into this demo. And I started running, and I got to that hallway, the hallway with the body, and I was like, this is it. It's like it's coming. I see all the windows. It's happening. Oh, what's that? Something moved across the window. and I was expecting it the whole time.
Yeah.
Oh, I got to a part where, there's a zombie like outside on the window banging on it, and I walked up to the window because it looked barred. It looked like a solid window, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna take this moment to like get an up close look at it, check it out, inspect it, see how I like the look. And I'm right up against it, and then it busts through this window on me, scared the hell out of me. It was
Yeah,
good.
I mean,
I enjoyed it.
yeah, that's the kind of stuff that we can expect from your Resident Evil game. That's the kind of stuff that people are going to be looking for too, especially longtime fans of the game who have played the originals. That's the kind of stuff that they want, just that absolute unpredictability.
Well, and I think this is going to be an amazing mixture of, okay, we're taking the original, we're revamping it, obviously over-the-shoulder gunplay, which I think works amazingly with this game because it's very RE4 in this case, and it feels really good. But I think also let's take the lessons of, Resident Evil 7 and let's add some of that in. And I feel like this is a mixing pot of all those kind of games combined, and there's going to be stuff in it that we don't even know is happening yet. I mean, obviously they've controlled the publicity of what's out there now. We know Mr. X is out there and stuff like that, but I assume there's going to be stuff in there that we're like, wow, I was not ready for this, or this is crazy.
Yeah, I'm super super excited. I mean, especially riding off of, like you said, kind of riding off of the Resident Evil 7. They'll probably mix a lot of stuff in there. Knowing Capcom, if this is a true remake, we'll probably get some endgame content that we just, that's brand new to the series, or at least new to this game, something that hasn't been in there before. So I'm super super stoked. I mean, even just talking about it with you guys gets me really excited.
So you mentioned a good point, the in-game content. I mean, what do you think that would be?
I mean, I want to just say something along the lines of like mercenary mode.
That's what I was hoping. I would love to see a mercenary mode type of thing incorporated into it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm so used to Resident Evil games that I really, off the top of my head, I can't think of what exactly could be added that would be cool. I just have a feeling Capcom will add something. Like all I can really think of off the top of my head is like mercenary mode or like a speed running clock, because I know a lot of people like to speed run Resident Evil. But aside from those basic things, I mean, I'm sure there's something out there that could be added, and I'm honestly just not thinking of it.
Well, for me, I'm thinking about like horde mode in Gears of War. Like, give me 4-player co-op, put me in the main hall, and we have to survive against as many waves as we can.
Yeah,
like that's the kind of thing I'm thinking, and to me that's got some replayability. Like I would play that. That would be pretty sweet.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, because when you had asked me and I was thinking about it, I was also thinking about like the Long Way Home mod for Halo 3. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but basically long hallway, you got something coming at you like super mega slow. You're trying to like run around obstacles and climb over stuff while it's just slowly coming towards you. You're going to turn around and pop shots at it. You run out of ammo, turn around, keep running through obstacles, something like that. Or maybe like some sort of like, now this is a bit of a stretch, but you could twist it to your will, something like a procedurally generated dungeon where you just keep moving forward kind of into like aimless darkness, and you're just moving through rooms, moving through, you could there's a million things you can incorporate into it to make
I could see a horde mode coming into it, like with a preparation phase of like, okay, you've got a minute to prep before you're going against this wave, because we've already seen that they have wooden boards for windows in the game, right? So literally just put that into it, and boom, we've got preparation for zombie waves, and we can pick a place as 4-player co-op where we're going to defend, that type of thing.
Yeah, even like Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4 had the whole like, tap X to move this shelf in front of the door, tap X to move the bookcase in front of the window, throw the lock on the door, like all that kind of stuff. I mean, yeah, you're exactly right. You could even do it to, again, this might be a bit of a stretch, but you could even do it to like a 2-story house, and you could use that as an entire map, just a 2-story house, just constantly running around, repairing, shooting through windows, yada, yada. Maybe, enemies themselves drop the ammo. So, like, you can't shoot through the windows to kill enemies before they get in. You have to actually let them get in so you can kill them and get their ammo for the next phases. I don't know. You know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, and I was thinking about this while I was playing the demo, because obviously the demo takes place in the police station. And I'm thinking back, like, well, this is not where it started. We're running down the street dodging zombies, and then we end up in a gun store where a guy gets killed because they bust through the glass because he's an idiot.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, is that still going to be there? Are they still going to recreate these incredible like beginning moments of the game? And I was like, that's really what I wanted to see in the demo
Mhm.
was that beginning phase to see are we really going that far back? Like we're not just going to start out in the police station.
Yeah, and I highly doubt it. I mean, I really, and like just as you described it, I mean, how long has it been since you've actually played Resident Evil 2? Like, I'm sure it's been a while, and even you remember that because it's really a staple moment in the game. Like, it's just a moment that everybody remembers, and I would hope they don't, but I really doubt that they would have us actually start from there. I mean, I think that's how a lot of old demos were too, though. They didn't put us right at the beginning of the game.
Yeah,
They
they're
just
not going
kind
to
of
show
slapped.
off everything, right? But yeah, so I was thinking about that, and I was like, I really hope they do it justice, and we're in that gun store, and we see the guy obviously act an idiot, maybe not to the extent that he did in like 1995 or
Mhm.
96 or whenever it came out, but a more realistic, like, oh, I didn't know they were coming through the window, I'm dead.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll buy it first day. Pat, what are you gonna do? I mean, it's the engine for Devil May Cry 5. Like, you got to get a peek at that.
Yeah, but at the same time, what if I disappoint myself?
He'll watch it on Twitch.
That's not a terrible idea. Or even better, just watch one of us play it.
Yeah, stream it for me, boys.
I can do that.
I was gonna say it's doable. It's not like it's
I would
not.
watch. I mean, I'm considering buying it. I'd probably wait a little bit to buy it. I probably wouldn't buy it day one or week one, but I'm considering it just because, like I said, like it gave me that itch for that type of game that I haven't had in a while, and I don't have anything at my disposal anymore to scratch that itch. So it's definitely in top consideration. But I mean, I'm playing through Final Fantasy X again, man. Where am I going to find the time?
You make time, especially after we hype it up and tell you how great it is, and then you'll play it and be underwhelmed.
Well, now I have a question. So, Alex, are you excited for Kingdom Hearts 3?
I am.
So how the hell does anybody find the time to play both? They're releasing them on the same day.
Yeah, I know. It's so I'm a Kingdom Hearts fan. I shouldn't say I'm like a fanboy, but I am a fan. I've beaten 1 and 2. I found it really hard for me to get into all of like the sub games, kind of like Assassin's
Oh, you
Creed.
didn't like 2.3 and 2.5 and 2.8,
2.5 HD remix.
and yeah, you didn't like all those.
Yeah, it became a lot for me. But I also, I played them pretty young. I played them when they were new on the PlayStation 2 and whatnot. I think I really just like the RPG elements of everything, and I really don't know if I got to fully appreciate the story. So I am a fan, and I've played through and beat 1 and 2. So I am very excited for 3. My big question, and I'd like to know what you think about it, or at least both of you, is do you think, since it's been so long since 2, do you think that do you think you will have had to have previously played the other games in order to get into this one?
I don't know. I don't even know if I want to play this one. Like it's been so long. We've waited so long between 2 and into 3 and all these rehashes that I don't want to play because they feel like money grabs of 2.5 and all this kind of crap. And I'm just like, just give us the 3 that we want. And there's been so much hype around it, and I feel so burnt out about the whole experience at this point. And when you even mention the story, I'm like, it's so convoluted and difficult to understand, no matter who you are to me, that I'm like, for any game, if I have to look up YouTube videos to figure out what exactly is happening, then obviously it's over my head. It's too much. Like, if I have to rely on other people to dig into it and tell me what's going on, either I'm an idiot or it's just way too much. It's just way too much.
Yeah.
So I'm really concerned that it's not going to live up to the hype. I'm really concerned that too much time has gone by and it's going to come out and it's just going to flop, and it's not going to be what I wanted. It's not going to be what I thought it was going to be, and it's going to be it's going to take all the things I loved about 1 and 2, and it just isn't going to be there, and I'm going to play it and be like, cool, and that's it, and not ever finish it.
Yeah, and I worry about that too, and I think that's reasonable. It's been so long that honestly, a big part of it is just the hype. I mean, like, kind of like how they always say, like, Half-Life 3's coming. Like, you're just, it's a big chunk of it. They could just be riding off the hype. I don't think that they will as a company, because it's Square, right? I'm assuming it's still Square.
Yeah, it is still Square. And I mean, when I think of hype trains and I think of that kind of stuff, I always think of what was that game that came out with the Mars and all the universe stuff? What was it?
No Man's Sky.
Yes, No Man's Sky, the hype with that and how
Yep.
it was terrible when it came out. Granted, we're talking about kind of independent studio versus, major development studio. So it's there is a difference there, obviously, but it's been a long time.
Yeah,
It's been such a long time. And we're talking about Disney movies that I haven't even seen, Disney movies I know nothing about. And I'm not going to go watch these movies just so I understand what the hell is going on.
that's completely fair. So like, yeah, you might be getting slapped with references that you know absolutely nothing about, and yeah, and that makes complete sense. I'm also worried about the same thing though. I mean, I'm worried that it's going to be super super hyped up. We're going to get it and be underwhelmed, but people are just hyping it out of proportion. To nobody's specifics fault. I mean, Square's not the one that's necessarily coming out and like over marketing it, super hyping it up or anything. We as fans are just hyping it up beyond.
I mean,
belief.
we're talking about 5 days from now is when this game comes out.
I know, and it's one of those games where it's
is that hard to believe? Like 5 days from now is what we're talking about, and I would drop the $60 for Resident Evil 2 because I think I'm gonna really enjoy that, and I didn't even ask for it, and I feel like it's an homage to players that really like the Resident Evil series. But 3, I'm just like, I'm not dropping that money. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna read the reviews. I'm gonna do my due diligence on that one because I'm terrified that I'm gonna drop $60. I'm gonna be pissed about it for who knows how long, and I'm gonna look back and be like, well, that was my single worst purchase of 2019.
Yeah, and I don't think it's necessarily going to be horrible, but I mean, and you're making a lot of valid points. And what I'll probably do is I'll probably get Resident Evil. Actually, and by probably I mean I will get Resident Evil 2 first. And then in the time that I'm meticulously playing over Resident Evil 2,
speed running it in the time that you're speed running it, trying to beat it in an hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah, and I do that a lot as well. But in the time that I'm in that 1 hour that I'm playing through Resident Evil 2, I'll keep an eye out for reviews.
Yeah, you're reading reviews while speedrunning. You're like, I beat it in hour 10. I could have done 102, but I was reading this review on Kingdom Hearts 3, and I it doesn't look good.
I know. I don't know what it is. I have a lot of fun trying to beat the games as fast as possible. Like I'm by no means a professional speedrunner, nor do I strive to be. But I have a lot of fun speedrunning games, and I
think if you enjoy it that much, you should really try and put the time in, and you should go to like a GDQ or something like that, and actually participate and do the whole speedrun thing.
Dude,
that would be cool. You should totally do it. I would be on the couch with you, Pat. We'll go. We'll sit on the couch and we'll talk about the game. Like that would be sweet.
While Pat vapes into the mic.
Yeah, Pat will be vaping like, I'm Pat.
That's who I am. All right?
That's who I am.
You can't have me without the vape.
I'll have my infamous 4 Loko and 40-ounce malt liquor on the floor, and I'll be like, Pat, 40 me. And I'll just like kind of pour the Colt 45 into my mouth while I'm playing through. Thank you.
That's funny. Yeah, that's what you should do. You should GDQ at the end of 2019 for Resident Evil 2, and then we'll all sit on the couch and commentate for it.
Yeah, I absolutely. I heard you guys previously talking about it, and I get super super stoked when I hear anybody talking about it, just because I think it's so great. I think it's for a great cause. I love what they do, and I was surprised that I think I had mentioned it to Pat that he just wasn't as into it. But again, speedrunning is definitely very niche. Yeah, it's very. I always say niche, but I'm like I'm on recording. Am I wrong? But yeah, it's very niche, and not everyone's into it. But like, I absolutely love GDQ. I love watching the people. Especially, I love watching certain games, and when people add like their own commentary to it, it's just a whole new element that can be like super super funny and entertaining. And I love that it goes on for a week long, and I could just bring it up on my TV or a monitor on the side and just keep it going like all the time.
Or they even, they upload it all to YouTube, so you never miss out. I mean, you get to see it all. And it's one of those things where it's like, even if you don't like speedrunning, if you love a specific game, you tend to find at least one game on the schedule that you really like, and then you see something that someone does that you're like, that blows me away. I can't believe that just happened.
Oh,
like,
dude.
I saw a Castlevania Symphony of the Night run this year with Alucard that was 14 minutes long or like 13 minutes long, and I was like, I didn't even think that was possible with that character. You gotta be fucking kidding me.
I know, I absolutely love that game. That's one of my big watches.
Yeah, I'm like,
same thing.
I mean, you tell me 13 minutes with Richter, I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Who hasn't done that? But 13 minutes with Alucard, I'm like, what is this guy doing? Wait,
Yeah.
what is this? This is not the right game, right? Are we talking about something else? Is this a mistake?
Yeah, and I love watching like the game breaking bugs, just the stuff that people come up with. Like as a community, it's insane. Like it's so awesome when you hear like someone discovered this new glitch that shaves 0.5 seconds off of the time. Now people all over the world are racing to be the fastest in the world.
And it's a 20-year-old game, right? That's the this
Yeah.
game like Battletoads back way when like we just recently 6 months ago found this new shortcut that saves like 3
Oh, yeah.
seconds. Because we're that into it.
I know, it's insane. Like I remember, I don't, and then depending on if you're into the speedrunning community or not, you may or may not be familiar with this, but there's a famous, I shouldn't say famous, but there's a well-known video on YouTube called Streets 112, and it's from the GoldenEye speedrunning community, and the reason it's such a big deal was that like the level Streets on Agent, if you played the game before, you know that literally all you can like an easy way to beat it is to literally just run through the level. Like you're just running through a map of different streets, and you can run directly to the end without doing anything. And it was widely considered that nobody could beat the time of 1 minute and 14 seconds on it. And then years later, like because people like the GoldenEye speedrunning community is so dedicated to this that years later, somebody managed to skip 113 and actually get Streets in 1 minute and 12 seconds. And dude, I watch that video all the time. It is the funniest speedrunning video I've ever seen in my life. The dude is screaming at the top of his lungs, cursing the entire time. I got to make sure I send it to you because it's so funny. But it just goes to show you, like, these games are 20 years old. So, like, when someone shaves 1 second off the time, it's legendary. I know, like,
that's the difference. That's all it takes.
Yeah. And, like, I know, like, one guy, I remember reading about it a little while ago. One guy was quietly trying to take all the Mario Kart 64 world records, and he was trying to consecutively hold the record for every single track. And as soon as people found out that he was on the last track, everyone and their brother tried to get on and dethrone the guy. And I don't know. I love the speedrunning community. It's just adds a whole new element to the game that you don't really think about.
Sounds good. So all the three of us, GDQ, end of 2019. Sounds like a thing now.
Yeah, depending on where it is, absolutely.
Yeah, you can be the runner, and we'll give you the support that you need.
I'll just so my name's Alex. I'm gonna be doing the Resident Evil 2 demo. Just the demo.
Just the demo. We got it down to 1 minute 58 seconds.
Yeah, so I'll bang this out real quick. But yeah, it's funny that you say that because like when I finished my time, I showed it to my buddy who's also really into speedrunning, and he was like, "Dude, you might want to check that. That's a pretty good time." And I checked, and like I think the record that I've seen is like 2 minutes and 45 seconds. So I'm getting there.
Yeah, I think that's what I'd seen too, because I remember you posting, you'd be like, "I'm the king," and I was like, "Not quite. You're getting there, but not quite yet." It's close. It's very close. A couple more attempts, you might have it.
You'll all see. I'll break.
But it's basically just watching that person do it and being like, "How can I shave a second off of this time?"
Yeah. I know it's like I watched like when I ran through it, I was like, dude, that's stellar. Like there is absolutely no way that I could shave any more time off that run. I did that flawlessly, and I look and I'm like, oh, someone beat me by like 30 seconds. And I was like, I have absolutely no idea how they did that.
Well, even watching the like fastest time that had been posted at the time, they didn't even go through the library. They backtracked all the way through, and I was like, is that really quicker? Like that's really interesting to me. They backtrack so much, and I'm like, I don't know. I would almost want to play through it multiple times and time it to be like, is that actually faster than going through the library?
Yeah, I still have like 7 minutes left on my demo.
Well, I mean, you could always create a new profile and go
this
after
is true.
it. So
yeah, we briefly talked about that as well.
Yeah. So Pat, anything else for you on Resident Evil 2 before we come to a close here?
Yeah, am I the only one that thought the running felt sluggish at times?
Yeah, it didn't bother me at all.
I pointed that out.
If you played the original Resident Evil, I think if you played the original Resident Evil, you'd be like, this is about the same.
Yeah, no, and I mean, it's a good point, Pat. But again, I don't really know how into Resident Evil you are. I know, like, I did it, and I was like, yep, this is about what I expect. Like, running isn't really running. You're just like, you're just kind of trotting along. So you're not really running, but you're moving more quickly. But yeah, I mean, it kind of natively feels sluggish.
So when you think about it, okay, the zombie apocalypse is happening, everything's gone to hell, and we're just kind of like casually like, I'm gonna run over here, okay, I'm gonna trot slowly over this direction. So from that perspective, it's like, yeah, it seems a little
Yeah,
ridiculous.
I guess that's what you would expect when all you do is run with your arms in the same pose, holding your gun upward the entire time. Like, you never put your arms down and actually, enter a sprint. You're just.
I don't know about you, but every cop I've seen out in the force, like in active duty, that's the pose they have. They running down the street with their gun up. You know,
It looks so
that's the
robotic.
pose. They're ready for action anytime, zombie or otherwise.
Cops around here do the Naruto run everywhere, so.
While
That's
shooting
because they're
your
trying
gun.
to get away from the crime. They're not trying to do anything about it.
Yeah, I heard the police sirens. Was it by your window like 20 minutes ago?
Very highly possible. It's all the
Yeah.
time. I'm numb
Yeah, it
to
really
it now.
is. It really is. Yeah. What a fun place you live.
You got out.
You're right. I did. I escaped.
You left me here.
All right. Anything else anybody has before we wrap up this episode?
I have one quick last question for Alex.
Okay.
All right. So earlier when we were talking about your top 5, we had kind of talked about how you're a completionist and you like in-game challenges.
Yeah.
Even out-of-game challenges. I know you'll seek like community challenges to try to do.
Mm-hmm.
Real quick.
Okay.
Your favorite game that you've 100%ed. Like, what was the most satisfying one to 100%? And then number 2, what is one like community challenge that you think is worth everyone giving a shot? Like the one that you would recommend? Like for me, I'd say Nuzlocke Run in Pokemon.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll touch on that really, really quickly. I agree. Like, if I had to pick one, and I might just be saying it because it's the most well known. Like, we might end this, and in about 15 minutes, I'll be like, oh shit, you know what? I should have thought of this. But the Nuzlocke run it's a lot of fun, and it definitely adds a whole new element of challenge to the Pokemon game. And for those who aren't familiar with it, briefly, Nuzlocke run is basically there's about 100 different ways to play it, but the most watered down version is that you get your standard Pokemon game. You're playing through it as normal. The main difference being that whenever one of your Pokemon faints, you get rid of it forever. It's gone.
Release it.
Done. You release it. And the other part being that you can only catch the first Pokemon that you encounter in any given area. Now, some people change that depending on like what if that Pokemon is one you already have or something like that, and you can kind of there's a handful of ways to play it, but it adds a whole new element. Like, what a lot of people do is they'll play through Nuzlocke runs and they'll actually name their Pokemon after like their family members, loved ones, or people that they care about. I mean, I'm not really that dedicated to it, but people will do that because it motivates them to keep their Pokemon alive and keep them safe and everything like that. That would probably be my favorite community challenge that I can think of off the top of my head. Most satisfying game that I've 100%ed. Man, that one's really, really hard. I'm trying to reflect back on all the games that I've actually 100%ed, and it's actually a pretty good number. Binding of Isaac, the original. I've 100%ed that game in terms of I've gotten every single Steam achievement for it. And for those of you who are familiar with the game, you'll know that takes an intense amount of work.
Yeah, I remember when you were no-lifing that one at college to try to.
Yeah, we're in the same boat for that one because I've done that as well. The Lost run is always kind of a deal breaker.
Yeah. I mean, you know how it goes. I mean, hundreds of thousands of failed runs, and it felt really, really satisfying at the end.
For me, it was just like you're constantly resetting, just looking for the right item to start out and then hopefully finish it.
Yep,
oh
exactly.
My god! And then it got even worse after like Afterbirth and like some of the bosses they add to that, and I was like, well, I got to do it again.
Yeah. I that's definitely the most satisfying one. I really was sitting here thinking about it the whole time too, and that just popped into my head and was like, oh shit, yeah, I did 100% that. And that's definitely the most satisfying. Like I said, the folks game, they know how.
You just died there. What happened?
We lost you. Come back.
Yeah. And that wraps this episode.
And there's the sign that we're going to end her there.
Yeah.
Let me shoot him a text here.
I was going to say, let's see what's going on. Oh, that's funny, though.
Computer battery died.
Computer battery died. Oh, all right. Do we wrap it up or do we wait?
Hello.
Oh, there he is. Okay.
Hey.
Dude.
All right.
Well, I'm glad I got to wrap that up. My computer battery just died.
You did not
so
wrap
I'm on my
that
phone.
up. You did
Well,
not
I'm on my
wrap
phone
that
now.
up.
Okay.
The last thing we heard, I think, was like hundreds of thousands of runs, and then you started like fading out and then gone.
Sorry about that. So, yeah. I'll try to be brief with it. I'm on the phone now, so sorry if the audio quality is different. I guess that's just a little thing to add to the recording. But hundreds of thousands of failed runs. All worth it when you actually get that 100% completion. I mean, it's just an unreal game. Actually, a fantastic game too. If you've never played it, I highly recommend it, especially if you're into the, roguelike dungeon crawlers. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, Binding of Isaac is definitely my favorite 100% game.
Cool. All right. Good input.
Pat, anything else for you before we wrap it up?
I'm done. What about you, man? What about you?
No, I'm good. This is a good episode. I think we covered a lot of ground. Alex, I appreciate you being on this episode with us. It was incredible to have our first guest. I didn't really know how it was gonna go, but it went a lot better than I expected. So that was awesome.
Yeah, and I really, really appreciate being invited on. I was super incredibly stoked when Pat asked me, and I'm glad to be a part of it. I love listening to you guys every week.
Cool, man. That means a lot to us. Thank you a lot for that.
No problem.
All
All
right,
right, Pat.
so
As usual, it's your turn. Take us out.
hit him with the outro. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. I'm Pat. He's Chris. That was Alex. He may be back. He may not be. We don't know. Will I ever talk to him again? I don't know either. All right. See you guys next week.